Yeah, so hey Shira, how you doing today?
Hi.
Excellent. How's your day been so far?
Good. I am here in South Florida, so we got through Hurricane Milton in one piece, and
Wow.
it's actually a beautiful day today, so happy about that.
Wow, like how often do you get those hurricanes over there?
Well, it's been just a consistent couple of weeks, but luckily I'm on the southeast coast in West Palm, and we're used to getting them head on, but the last couple have been sort of sneaking its way around the West
Okay,
Coast, so yeah.
okay. All right,
Mhm.
well, let the viewers know who you are, what you do, and why you do it, Shira.
Sure. I am Shira Weitz, founder of Shira Weitz Matchmaking, and I've been a matchmaker for 6 years following running a blog about dating and relationships. And I do it because I think from a young age, being creative minded, I always had sort of uh, dating and relationships there to help me connect to other people as a perpetually single person. Talking about, dating lives was always something that I could relate to. And then realizing that, you know, a lot of people suffer in their relationships, whether they're single or in a relationship. And that if we kind of brought it more to the surface and had more of an educational mindset behind it, then, we could improve our lives and become happier, healthier individuals and couples.
Right. That's for sure. That's for sure. The aim is to be able to uh, get together and be able to see a way to make progress within relationships, you know. So that being said, we've all had struggles in previous relationships. What would you say some of your struggles have been in previous relationships, and how have you navigated through that?
I definitely think that in the past, big realizations for me have been, underestimating how difficult communication actually is. And this could be like really simple communication, to more like complex communication surrounding intimacy. It is really hard to advocate for yourself when you are worried about what your partner is going to, how your partner is going to react and respond. And oftentimes that can lead to under communication, and that leads to building things up on the inside, which then winds up coming out inevitably in other ways. I think that was one of my biggest lessons. And now I just have a tendency to overshare in all my relationships. I think also, being younger, especially when I was in like my mid 20s or definitely early 20s, but it was sort of a game of, first it was a game of like, let me just like see if somebody can like me, and without really thinking about like, do I like them? It was all about, does this person like me? And then when it got to like my mid 20s, early 30s, it was like I'd find these people and I'd latch on to them regardless of the energy that they were giving back to me. But then, as you kind of mature in your individual life, and I think actually, like, at least the posts I follow on social media, the positive kind of like, just move on. Like, if it's not a hell yes, then it's a hell no. And I think that, if you're not getting the energy back, I think people are more like prone to just wipe their hands of it and move forward.
Right. So you mentioned oversharing in like your relationships now, right? So would you say that's trying to fix something before it's broken, or fix something that's not broken, or why is it that you feel like you overshare in relationships?
Well, like I think it's sort of like being early is to be on time, right? Oversharing is still kind of like just normal communication. It just feels like oversharing, because you're not used to having these conversations. And I would say, um, yeah, it's sort of to get ahead of the curve when it comes to, little things like addressing little issues before they turn into big issues. And it could be really anything from that to, talking about like everybody has, for instance, different definitions of what is like cheating, for instance. What's acceptable relationships to have with people of the same gender, whatever gender it is that you're like interested in, boundaries, things like that. I am, definitely more of a word person than a physical affectionate person.
Okay.
So my boyfriend and I have conversations all the time about like, my boundaries around that. And because he's like one of those crazy overly affectionate people, which I think could potentially be rare, but and I'm like 3 feet at all times. So, in order to sustain like both of our needs and sustain the relationship, it really is just like that constantly checking in with each other to say, hey, like, how are you feeling? And to, make sure that all of these different things have been and are continually being addressed.
Okay, yeah. Would you consider yourself a sapiosexual woman that values intellect over like intimacy more, or like what would that be accurate?
Uh, that does sound accurate. Yeah. I mean, I think it changes, and I think like, just like anything, I think the love can change and will change depending on like who it is that, you're with at any given time. But yeah, I would definitely say I'm more of like the intellectual, stimulated type of person.
So
Mhm.
how do you find a balance? Because you said your boyfriend is like the more kind of feely kind of passionate type of guy, and you being a more sapiosexual type of woman. How do you find that kind of balance in a relationship like that?
Well, I mean, one, again, it is constant communication and constantly checking in. It's like, I think like like whatever the non-conceived like part of the thing is that you think that you're gonna have like a conversation about something once, and then the issue's solved and it's over, or it's not solved and it's over. But I think again that like continual checking in with each other. But for us it has been really helpful to, for me, when I need him to pull back, I'll ask him to pull back, and then the more he pulls back, the more I can be drawn to him. So that's one way. And then we've also now established like a safe word so that we don't have to have, you know uncomfortable or potentially like hurtful conversations in real time, like as it's happening. So if I'm feeling like smothered or something, I just say, octopus or whatever it is. And like he'll just get the cue and back off. But we also just, we have a good sense of humor. That is one of the things that keeps us really close. So we are like able to laugh about it and not take it too seriously most of the time. So I think that's also a really important element.
Right, right. There's a lot of women that have had failed relationships in the past, right? And it's affected their kind of way of expressing their kind of sexuality because they're coming from a place of shame that they had a failed kind of relationship. So how can they get over that type of shame that they're feeling and actually express that, become expressive once again, so they can express themselves and their feminine side?
Hmm. Well, I'm not quite sure like where, like it really depends on where, the shame and such is coming from, I would say.
Yeah, so
Um,
to speak, like the fact that they thought that their relationship was gonna last a certain period of time, and they kind of feel regret that it didn't, and they kind of close in on themselves because they're coming from a relationship that didn't work out. But they know it's not the end of the world, but inside they kind of feel like kind of crushed in a certain kind of way. So it's hard for them to start to express themselves and tap into their femininity once again because of the past. So in what kind of ways can they navigate and move forward to actually be able to become expressive as the feminine person they are?
sure. I mean, you know, I think one like massively important thing that like people don't do enough is like congratulate themselves and their friends who are newly single. I think one of the hardest things that you can do in life is end a relationship because during that relationship, you know, if it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. And one of the easier routes that you could take is try and cover up the issues that have gone on that make it so it's not supposed to, you know, be your forever person. But you know, just the fact that you've made it out through the other side and you're single is something I think to be celebrated because it takes a lot of courage to end something, especially if it's comfortable, if it's familiar. If you know, the better option is to get out rather than stay in if that relationship wasn't right and wasn't bringing you joy. Um, or if, you know, sometimes it's the worst, but if you weren't bringing the other person the kind of joy that they needed, you know, it's hard. You don't want to take that personal, but everybody's got their own things. I think, you know, keeping that in mind and also just understanding that like everything we do that, you know, requires us to get out of our comfort zone is a risk. And that's when like you'll big risks, big rewards, right? So it really does require that courage to step out and get back out there and open yourself back up. But you know, as a matchmaker, I understand like the frustrations that dating, especially in the modern world, can cause. And I feel like that can turn a lot of people off to looking. And you know, and I do get that because as you know, somebody whose full-time job it is to try and find like partners that could even potentially have a shot at compatibility together. You know, it's no small feat and it can be a time suck. So I really do understand that. Um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Speaking about big risks, like, what would you say to people that they're currently in a relationship? It's a monogamous relationship, but they're questioning and thinking about being non-monogamous, but they don't necessarily know how they can voice that to their partner and not shake up the relationship too much. How can they discuss this with their partner and have that discussion of non-monogamy and what would that look like without necessarily destroying the relationship?
Right. Well, you know, I think that again, yeah, like you started with, it's always going to be a risk. I think that different people are just going to have like they're going to naturally have different reactions to these kinds of conversations. You know, especially if somebody feels threatened, if somebody feels jealousy, things like that. I mean, I would say that there are a lot of really wonderful, you know, books out there and stuff like that that kind of can explain, you know, non-monogamy in a different way. So I would say if you just want to test the waters, like if you've never had something, a conversation like this with your partner, you know, and you've never even discussed like relationships, I think maybe starting with some literature and like as if it's piquing your own curiosity and maybe sharing just what you're learning with your partner before, you know, jumping straight into like, how would you feel about opening up our relationship? Because that could just be a more like, you know, informational connection just to open the dialogue about it to begin. And feel non-threatening. And, you know, obviously there's so much that goes into it and exploring jealousy and what that means. I would say definitely like for me, it's a tough one because so my partner and I, like before we really got into dating, you know, I've done this with like people who, you know, it's at the very beginning, but not sure like, you know, if it's going to ever amount to anything. But, you know, having that conversation from early days is lets now me know that like we can always communicate about this. Um, and, you know, if he were the kind of person to have um, like a triggered response to it, and if he was like, oh no, like I would never, like I've had those conversations with people as well, who are just like, yeah, never, then like I would probably, it would generally like weigh in on whether I wanted to move forward with that person because, um, that it's like if we have such differing perspectives on that, then what else are we going to have such differing perspectives on? um People can grow and change, but yeah, I think if you're just for the first time like addressing it, you're maybe a few years or more into your relationship, you've never had that conversation before, just take an interest in learning more about it for yourself and kind of sharing what you're finding, as as you're learning more, just sharing it with your partner and kind of gauging their reaction. Even if it doesn't, automatically lead to a conversation, it will at least help you get an understanding of like where they're at in their own thinking.
Right. So essentially, like having that communication at the center of everything will allow people to be on the same page and know where everyone stands, because the lack of communication is the issue, essentially.
Yeah.
Speaking about communication, like there are people in monogamous relationships, but along the line, something has happened. Maybe one of them has stepped out and cheated in the relationship. Now, in the case that someone is cheated and their partner has not found out, but the person that has cheated is now feeling very guilty about what has happened, even though the partner hasn't found out. They would like to get it off their chest. They would like to let their partner know what has happened. How can something like that be spoken on without complete chaos breaking loose?
You can't. I mean, you can't have those expectations, like I think that if you want to come clean, like if you are in if you're in a safe environment where, that's the first priority, but like, you really have to be willing to give up your control over the relationship. But I'm really big on choice, and that everybody has a right to make a choice based on the information. And if they don't have all the information, then they can't make that choice. But I think if you are, if you've put yourself and that partner in that position, you should, I think, again, in a safe environment, come clean for your sake and the relationship's sake, but you just have to, accept the fact that you no longer have control over what happens next. Um, your partner could think about it and make the decision that they want to stay regardless. It could bring up other conversations such as non-monogamy. Maybe you find out they cheated too, though I doubt they would tell you in that, in that scenario, rather than just, you know, hang it
Yeah.
over your head. But I think if you're, willing to do that, you also have to be willing to face the consequences. And if that does lead to chaos or the end of a relationship, then, so be it. You've learned a lesson, even if it was a hard one.
Yeah. Like, these things happen all the time to people. But looking at like human nature itself, we go out all the time and we are attracted to different people like all the time, right? Whether people do something about that or not. So, what is your general opinion on monogamy versus non-monogamy, like in the context of human nature and the fact that we are attracted to different people?
Um, I really do think it's just a personal choice. I don't really think like one is necessarily better than the other. I don't think one is necessarily more easy or easier than the other. I really think that, both are going to come with a huge amount of challenges and sacrifices. And you really just have to do, what's best for you and your partner. And I think that, we are like in a generation that has seen so much of that betrayal. And I think what we want to sort of avoid to a degree, like seeing, our parents, friends' parents, everybody's parents, basically, like go through some kind of massive betrayal and an affair. And I think one of the things that winds up hurting the most is the feeling that you didn't really know your partner. You felt like they were living a double life and you had no idea. And I think that almost more so than like the, need for physical um satisfaction from elsewhere, like that's what hurts the most.
Mm,
So that's kind of what actually got me like interested in non-monogamy from, the beginning. And I think that like it could be a really good choice if that's your mentality, but or at least I think that I call like our relationship open to open, because that it's like, okay, we're not necessarily non-monogamous right now, but maybe in 10 years from now, in 20 years from now, we have an understanding already that we could potentially want to change what our relationship is, because I think relationships should grow and evolve just like we do. And I think more importantly than the label of monogamy or non-monogamy is that ability to, bring it up time and time again and check in and to be able to say like, hey, how are you in our relationship? Like, what would you need? What can I do? What can you do? And I do think I will say while we're on that subject, like talking to you just want to be careful if you're like going to a couples counsel or therapist or something like that, that you're not, if you do, you know, want or have even want to like have the option to discuss it, um, to be able to um choose a therapist that is going to be open-minded about it, because there will be more traditional people out there and that won't really be conducive like to those kinds of conversations. So yeah, that's
yeah. Finding someone that can resonate with you and kind of have that broad perspective to navigate your different type of like avenues that you want to go down and things like that.
right.
Yeah, I think that's very important, you know. Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure. What would you say to people that are single, that they now embarked on a new relationship and they're starting to immerse themselves in this new relationship? You know, there's a lot of butterflies, there's a lot of attraction. They're very excited about this new relationship that they're embarking on. What would you say to them when they start to lose themselves within that relationship? Like in the journey of immersing themselves in the relationship, they start to lose their sense of self. How can they navigate that and immerse themselves without necessarily losing their sense of self?
Yeah, I mean, the moment you said the word immerse, I was like, red flag, and then butterflies and all that stuff. You certainly want to be excited at the beginning of a relationship, but those crazy like chemicals that people contribute to chemistry, like those are temporary if you are in a position where you're looking for a lifelong partner, potentially somebody to start a family with. I think that, you need to be really aware of why you're feeling what you're feeling. And, that you're not like in a position where you're just like, oh, I can't wait to see this person all the time because, like maybe you're not getting something from them. So you're feeling like in order to get something from them, you have to immerse yourself. I would say also, listen, relationships are hard work and they're not all sunshine and rainbows. You're not a struggling single person until find your happily ever after and never have to worry about, your partner or relationship for the rest of your life. It is tough work and you do give up a lot of your independence, and a lot of people do. And whether this isn't to say it's negative or positive, but a lot of people do, you see your friends less. Like you do the little things that you don't even know you'll miss when you're by yourself, like watching Netflix in bed. Like those are little things that once you are like, connected with another person, you're living with them, those little things like are gone forever. So, sort of. So, I would say, like, do your best to, enjoy your independence and enjoy your friendships and enjoy your time alone. Even if it's doing like the simple little things like putting on a face mask or, walking around naked without somebody like objectifying your body, like, and, stuff like that. So that, and this will do, a couple of things. One, put you in a state of gratitude and appreciation for what you already have. Um, but two, it will show the person, your partner, that you do have your own stuff going on, which will demand kind of a level of respect and maturity as well. And they would be more prone to kind of lean in and meet you where you are rather than to feel like they're maybe getting suffocated or things are happening too fast, which could potentially make certain people want to, run the other direction.
I would even say it would be very attractive to your partner if you have your own type of self, like you know who
Yeah.
you are, kind of thing, because you're not necessarily just latching on, but you're also a person that your partner can experience as an individual as well, you know. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah. So we speak to different people all the time, like. As a matchmaker, you speak to different people, and me, like I coach different women. I speak to different people. We learn things from the people that we speak to all the time. What would you say some of the biggest things are that you've learned from the people that you've spoken to and worked with?
That's a good one. Um, yeah, you're so right because there's so many different types of people. So I'm trying to think like what the collective lesson
Mm.
um would be. Um, I would say I would say that, as soon as you think you know what you want, like you're in a harder place. It's this thing between like wanting to manifest. So you want to do the work to manifest. So, you have a list of your qualities and your like physical things of what you think you're looking for in a person. But it feels like so often as soon as you make that list, like you're going to be meeting somebody who is completely different than anything that you had imagined. So I would say a big lesson is like just don't assume that what the person is or who the person is who you're going to be with. Leave room for complete surprise. Um, that yeah, that like the person who you wind up clicking with isn't going to be anybody close to who you thought you might wind up clicking with.
Excellent, excellent. Well, listen, Shara, it's been excellent speaking with you.
Yes.
Thank you
So,
so much for everything that you've shared. Where can people find you, find out more about you, and find out more about what you do?
so ShiraWeitzMatchmaking.com is my website, and you can follow me on Instagram at Shira Weitz Matches. And yeah, that's it for now.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Shira. And
Thank you.
for the viewers, all of that information will be in the description below, so you can get in touch with Shira. So, Shira, before we end the session, is there any last words that you'd like to say?
Just that I think, what you were saying before, I think it's super important to understand that autonomy is just as an important in a relationship as it is before you're in a relationship. And I think that that's another reason why if you're single, you should enjoy and love your single self because you should want to and be able to be in a relationship where your sense of autonomy can stay strong so that your relationship can thrive. And good luck.
Thank you, Shira.
No problem. Thank you so much. Take care.
Take care.